Hello, my name is Gabriel, and yesterday I watched the Maze Runner movie. The Maze Runner premiered one day before the US, so 18th of October. Portuguese premiere dates are on Thursdays, which can either be very good or extremely bad. In this video, I'm gonna kind of share my reaction to it, my feelings toward it. The Maze Runner was done exceptionally well. Everyone was like, this material is so good. You've ruined it in the book. Make it better in the movie, please. And trust me, they did exactly that. Now, most people don't really like The Maze Runner as a book, but I enjoyed The Maze Runner more than a lot of people. Obviously, my opinion on the trilogy has since spiraled down into hell because of the death cure, but I just decided to ignore that watching the movie, which was kind of hard. Let's kind of discuss. This will obviously spoil people who have not read the book, and people who have not watched the movie. I will try my best not to spoil anything, and if I do, I will either warn you or just something will show up with spoiler alert so you can mute. So, one thing I really liked about The Maze Runner was the cinematography. Cinematography-wise, The Maze Runner was done, like, so much better than The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games, we all complained about the handheld cameras that they just decided to use, God knows why, and just made the movie really confusing to watch. But The Maze Runner, even though they're running, you can still just completely love the way they captured the glade, the maze, and everything. Now, the Maze Runner movie was actually quite different from the book. They changed a lot of things. Usually when a booktuber says that, it's because it's an insult and that shouldn't be happening and you should stick to the book. But in the Maze Runner, that is the opposite. They change it for the better because the book, I have to admit, is not that good, but they changed some things that made the movie that much better. Anyway, the movie to me was better than the book, which is kind of supposed to happen with the Maze Runner. Even though I like the Maze Runner, you should go watch in theaters. It gives you that feeling just like it gives any other movie when you go watch in theaters. It's unexplainable. You should definitely go watch it. Anyway, to the story. I, again, will not spoil anything. So the first thing that changes is Thomas not remembering his name. In the book, you probably remember that Thomas, all of them immediately remember their names, but in the movie, they take a couple of days for it. It actually explains that their names will return in a couple of days. So that was kind of interesting. I'm like, okay. They added something I was not particularly a fan of. I really don't like fights. Violence is not my thing. And they added this fighting scene that the boys... It's kind of weird that was not in the book, but the one that the boys are fighting each other every night as a source of entertainment, and I completely get it, even though I don't like it. And Thomas is thrown into the ring, and he fights Gally, just kind of obvious. And Thomas hits his head and remembers his name. And I really like the scene that he remembers his name, because he gets up, is like, Thomas, that's my name, I'm Thomas. And everyone around the ring just comes and hugs him, and they celebrate. And that scene was actually really nice. I like how they did it. The glade. The glade was exactly how I imagined it. A big rectangle of grass, trees, food, and animals, and just, it's how you imagine it. The maze, however, was not the same. I imagined the maze like huge space between the columns, like pretty huge, where they can run freely. The maze was actually really thin. It was still thick enough for them to run, but it was actually thinner than what I was expecting. That did not bother me so much. It just... okay. I really like how they explain everything. You get into the movie and they explain, Albie just explains everything, and it's so clear in the mind of someone who has never read the book or heard of the Maze Runner, and that is actually really good. In the movie, they made Thomas way less repetitive, obviously. In the book, people were complaining about it. Although I found Thomas repetitive, there's just something I gotta say. Imagine being in Thomas's situation. It's obvious you wouldn't be as repetitive as Thomas. You would be 100 times more repetitive than Thomas, because if you didn't remember anything, just imagine the questions that would be that would be swimming inside of your mind, just constantly repeating themselves. And you complain that Thomas is too repetitive, but if it was you in his situation, you would be really repetitive about the questions going on in your head. Being repetitive as asking people things, that was completely thrown away and didn't bother me at all. It was an improvement. Teresa. I love Teresa as a character, even though we don't get a lot of her in the books. I actually really liked her. I love the way they introduced Teresa. They just did it so different from the book and so much better. Teresa in the book is actually just, it takes a while for her to wake up, but in the movie it kind of feels like that. She takes like a couple of scenes and then she wakes up. Anyway, she wakes up and she runs to the top of this thing that they built, and Thomas is away and someone says the girl woke up, and you just see Thomas running. Well, she's on top of that thing and she's throwing rocks down at the boys, and they're all like with shields, and that was just hilarious. She's like, who are you people? Why am I here? Where am I? Yeah, that was really, really cleverly done. Another thing I really liked about the movie was Frypan. In the book, there's just something about him that I really didn't like, but in the movie, he's actually really comical and humorous, and you really, really grow a liking to him. In that scene where Teresa is throwing down the rocks, he says, gee, are all girls like that? And that's actually, that was done. Anyway, the movie goes on, and I'm liking it. My dad's liking it, which is actually really surprising. Another thing I really liked was how they kept the Grievers a secret. I've heard the cast and the crew saying that the Grievers are supposed to be a secret. When you see the Griever, and I'm not going to spoil anything, you just go, ew, because that's how you're supposed to go, but just bad. They're just so creepy and monstrous, and they were not at all what I was expecting. When I was reading the book, I just imagined that Pokemon, there's a Pokemon that's like a huge slug, and I really don't know. It evolves from Wurmple, I think, and just this huge slug. I just imagined that slug and mechanical arms randomly sticking out of it. So that was how I imagined it, and if you watch the movie, you've known that is not how the Grievers look. The Grievers were obviously creepy, and I will not say anything else because you should go in it and be really surprised how they did the Griever thing. Another thing is, and this will spoil anyone who has not read the book, they don't lose absolutely any time with the whole code figuring out thing. There's something that happens which I will not say, and they just go straight for the exit, and I love that because in the book they just waste so much time trying to figure out the code and everything, and just it should have been done a little bit more quickly. The sky did not lose color, and the maze was actually not indoors, it was outdoors. At the end they go on a helicopter ride and you see the maze, and it's not actually an indoor thing, which if you've read the books know, in fact the maze is kind of an experiment table of sorts. Anyway, they don't lose any time with the code, they go straight for the exit. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. I like the movie, as I've said. I like the way it ended, like the helicopter just swaying through these abandoned, completely destroyed infrastructures of Earth's previous buildings. That was so cool. That is actually pretty similar to the Scorch Trials cover, which is just, I'm not gonna take it out. It's just buildings crumbling, and that was really cleverly done. I will just say a couple more things, and this will spoil whoever did not read the whole series. So if you do not wish to be spoiled, mute until this picture is gone. What was Ava doing here? I was really surprised to see Ava Page because you only get introduced to Chancellor Page in the third book, and seeing her genuinely surprised me, like, oh, she's here, why? And so that was really cleverly done. And Gally. Does Gally really die? What the heck happened to him? In the third book, he's alive and healthy, not really, just alive. Gally actually joins them in exiting towards the safe haven, and so I really want to know what happens to Gally. Anyway, a lot of things changed, and I cannot wait to see how they changed the timeline of the books and how they transitioned it into the movies. The Scorch Trials is going to be a heck of a movie because zombies, and just it's going to be very intense, scary, and
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my reaction and feelings towards the movie. You should definitely go watch it. If you've read the book, if you haven't read the book, I mean, that's probably an incentive to read the book because the movie's better. Yeah, that's about it. Stay tuned for more. Bye! Whoa! Just...